Hey folks, it's Michael with the CCERP podcast, Cypress Creek Ecological Restoration Project. E is for ecology, and since we are the ones studying ecology, we got to be the ones moving in the environment, studying it. So we got to take care of ourselves a bit. We got to know how to move, how to observe, how to be quiet, how to be mindful. If we can't move slow and steady and patiently through an environment, we're going to miss a lot of observations and experiences and learning about animals in the area, how they interact with plants, what's there. We got to know how to move slowly, safely, and, for the pure enjoyment of it. Be able to get to some place where we can sit and just quietly enjoy some locale, maybe near the creek, watching birds or whatever. And of course, picking up trash, moving invasive species, all this stuff, exercising. And of course, this complex movement in a complex environment carries over no matter where you are. As humans, we move as humans wherever we are, whether it's in the wild or in managed nature or in a human-made environment. So it's an important aspect of the ecology and being with it and taking care of a environment, taking care of ourselves, interacting with the environment well. So, of course, we're discussing that, doing 3 or 4 of these, I think, in a row. So today we're back with Tim Maddox. Tim, would you say hi?
Hey, Tim Maddox here. Hello, everyone.
And would you review about yourself really quickly, please? Where are you and
sure.
What's your background?
I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My day job is as a software developer, and I'm a movnat level 2 certified person. I do. I teach a class. I have 2 classes in the week. One is a natural movement class, and the other is more of I host an open gym at Holistic Self-Defense. And that's where a lot of the concepts that you've been talking about in previous podcasts and our last conversation, a lot of those are kind of the heart and soul of the work that we do through Holistic Self-Defense.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been in the self-defense part of the thing?
So I've been involved with martial arts, not at an expert level, but as kind of a fitness endeavor, and also to learn the craft for probably the past 7 or 8 years.
Cool.
I've done taekwondo, jiu-jitsu, kung fu, and boxing. At Holistic Self-Defense, our physical confrontation methodology is developed by a gentleman in Richardson, Texas. His name is Justin Everman, and he heads up the Academy of Combat Warrior Arts out of Texas. And his approach is what he calls a reality-based self-defense. And it has a lot to do with World War II combative techniques. The rolling cage is probably the signature movement or defensive posture from his work, which essentially creates a protective cage around the head, because it's the most vital piece of equipment that we've got to maintain if we're going to defend ourselves. And his philosophy is that you need to be efficient and I guess express a judicial use of violence when necessary. So if you are going to go into a physical confrontation, you need to use the most direct means to either neutralize your opponent or to avoid that situation. Mm-hmm. And his art is not it's not a sport. It's more for the motto is get you home safe. Mm-hmm. But in addition to that work, they incorporate like physical awareness, psychic awareness in terms of your surroundings and things like that. So tying back to holistic self-defense, that goes into our model of restore, strengthen, and protect. That's our protect model for the work that we do. But we expand on that definition of self-defense to say your diet is part of your defense. Your movement is part of your defense. What you expose yourself to is part of your defense. The diversity in your movement, the volume of your movement, these are all things that work together to create a happy and healthy existence. And those things work together to protect our bodies and our lives so we can do the stuff we want to do.
Yeah, it reminds me of part of a book I heard today listening to on Audible. Rebecca Lewis, who I talked to recently, talked about Mark Cucuzella. Found one of his books on Audible, so I went ahead and got it. It's called Run for Your Life.
Okay.
You know, of course, the idea not meaning like self-defense, but be able to run the entirety of your existence. And do it in a positive way, not no pain, no gain kind of errant mentality, but run for enjoyment as well. But in there, he talks about the importance of prehab and how a lot of people neglect that, even a lot of doctors. And so it's very important, instead of just going out and running, first knowing good posture, how to breathe, doing some core work, knowing how your feet move, understanding the process, knowing, like, getting things like that down so you can enjoy it and you can do the movement efficiently and effectively, and you don't get injured in the first place. Just prevent it.
Yeah.
So as you're saying, eat right, and that's part of it. Sleep enough. If you're sleep deprived, that doesn't make you a beast and better than everybody. And, you're such a hard worker. That makes you inefficient. You're not able to do your best. You're going to get not be in situations as much. You're not going to be able to give as much of yourself to your kids, your family, your friends, as much as you deserve and they deserve. You're not going to be able to react as well. So, yeah. What are the things you said again? Like diet and what else?
Diet, excessive sitting, movement, exposure to environmental stressors and psychic stressors in terms of our emotions, and I guess to the point of inner dialogue, where we are reinforcing the idea of the positive aspects of our being, instead of shifting to a focus of the negatives.
That's nice, yeah. And then you have a better philosophy involved, instead of a bad philosophy that separates mind and body and looks at some situations like that, like fights is pure brute bodily things. It's your whole being is involved, and you want to try to prevent it.
Right.
Learn awareness, learn what to avoid, how to deal with danger, how to deal with that kind of person if you have to, but
yeah,
and how to make yourself best prepared to deal with that situation when it does come up.
Yeah. The more that we, I guess, expose ourselves in controlled environments to different types of stressors, the more that when those stressors come up in a less controlled environment, our reaction to them is going to be more calm.
Yeah,
and
right.
That's one of the things that we want to create, is to be able to be mindful in a particularly important situation, whether that's physical confrontation, or if it's a mental situation where I need to focus and I need to think about this thing because it's either important for my immediate health or the plans that I have. So we try to expand that definition of self-defense beyond just punching and kicking.
Yeah, you gotta stop and think about, okay, what the hell does a self mean? What is a human self? Instead of just thinking self-defense is pure physical, like beating or taking a beating. Yeah, it's like yourself is a rational animal, a human being, and you're a social animal, and what does that all involve is being a total rational animal, and everything involved in that whole self is cool.
Yeah, we're alive 24 hours a day, right?
Yeah.
Not just that, I've segmented this time to be to practice my movement or to engage in a specific cardiovascular type of activity. But the approach is that we want to stack our lives in such a way that we don't exclude movement to just a segmented part of our lives, where we just think about it when we're going to the gym. We want to incorporate it as a daily practice into me getting into the car, walking down the street. I had an issue where I had been doing some upper body work, and I had stressed my upper body, and I could tell that I had tension in my back, but I was ignoring it, and I had probably done too much at a level that wasn't consistent with what I could manage. And one day I got out of the shower and was drying my back. I flipped the towel around to floss my back, and that set off the time bomb that I had put into my back.
Wow.
It was that movement. It was bound to happen, but that was my I surfaced that vulnerability through that motion, but it was the manifestation of my lack of mindfulness. It was more around wanting to achieve a specific goal regardless of what it did to my body. And I had to take that lesson, and that kind of put me on the bench for a little while. But when we do get injuries, one of the things that injuries provide to us is an enhanced sensitivity or awareness around that part of our body. When you injure something, you're like, I see that now that piece of me is involved in much more than I thought it was.
Yeah.
And so when we do encounter injuries, instead of being depressed about them. I mean, we're not going to seek out to injure our body, but if we are encountering that situation, we need to take those injuries as learning opportunities to increase our sensitivity to either the things that bring them on, which in my case is being a little pig-headed, and then once you have that injury, learning how that piece of you integrates into the rest of your body, not just like stretching it to the time where, oh, it doesn't hurt anymore. Now I'm not injured, but it comes back then. But if we use that opportunity to say, okay, now I'm going to learn how that integrates into my body a little better, then I think we gain something from that, instead of just being depressed about I can't do the thing that I wanted to do in the way that I wanted to do it. We have a new opportunity, and it's just a result of the stuff you did. So you gotta deal with it.
Yeah, like you could think, okay, well, I thought I was just working something on my upper body, and like, why the heck is my back hurting? Instead of just being confused, think, okay, wait, maybe there's something in my back. Oh yeah, like my core. I'm having to use my core to do this upper body thing, and oh, I didn't know that. And in this aspect, at least, now I see more how they're connected, how the core and upper body are connected. Or you do some deadlifts or something. Well, that was my back day. Why can't I do a sprint today? Or why did I throw out my back? Well, because the core and the legs are connected, and maybe it's because we get our power to run from our core.
Yeah.
And then, like, bringing up the pig-headed thing, calling yourself pig-headed like that was good too, because that's another thing we got to do, as we talked about kind of earlier, do the holistic thing, and we got to bring that mental into play and think, okay, what ideas or methods of thinking did we have that led to this also? Do like the Japanese process of the 5 whys or the 7 whys. Ask why 5 or 7 times until you come to a root cause, as to what idea, philosophic idea, method of thinking, ideas about training, whatever, that led you to do that as well.
Yeah, it's not like I have a bad back and so now I'm injured. My muscles were not right. No, I led them on a path that was
nice.
not good.
Yeah,
and they can take that to a point, but then they say, hey, we got to stop.
Yeah, you're out of the envelope. You crossed the line.
Yeah,
cool. And yeah, the self-defense stuff you said is interesting, because that actually is intimately related to just being outdoors too, because you talk about developing the mindset, developing awareness of situations. Same exact thing with being outdoors. If you get outdoors, you of necessity have to start developing an intimate awareness of how close things are to you and where you are in relation to the ground. It's got to become second nature as you're walking through like between trees and vines and like maybe crawling under brambles or something. You need to be aware of how fast and slow you can go and what you can bend through. So today it was interesting. I was out picking up some trash, and I put some near a road, and I'm walking back in, and this vine I was doing like a hip bent walk. So I was bent at the hips, bent at the knees, and
sure.
I was able to walk through some like vines there, and one of them got caught on my neck. And so instead of like freaking out, some people would have, because they're used to being indoors, like, oh my God, this vine's on my neck, I'm gonna die,
Right.
I'm so used to it, so I just like roll out of it without even thinking about it much, It's part this idea.
Like,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah. It's part a feeling and partially being put into words like at the same time. Just naturally knowing to roll out of it, having this having my body learn the language, so to speak, already, and I just know what to do and say in this particular situation.
Yeah, like if you're going through the woods and then you find that you've gotten into a place with a bunch of brambles, which happens, it's often better to not take the power approach through that, because you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And it's also an opportunity to say, okay, I need, or to see that you need more than just a forward motion kind of mobility. You're going to need rotational. You're going to need to work in all of the planes of movement to get around this particular hazard. But that, you're right, that's a thing that we wouldn't experience walking, from our bedrooms to the living room, unless you have a very strange house, or cool house, really.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't entertain much, but now
when we do,
it's very special. So you need to have mindfulness about that. And also, like, if a wasp lands on you, sometimes it's better to just take a breath instead of trying to kill that thing.
And you shouldn't. They're important for our environment. It's like some biologists think we wouldn't exist if it weren't for wasps, because in evolution, wasps prey on a lot of insects. And if the wasps weren't there to prey on the insects, among other things that prey on insects, then insects would just be more efficient at eating plants. A lot of stuff wouldn't have evolved. They just get all the food before we could ever get it, or before herbivores could get it, like the herbivores we want to feed on, and we wouldn't have come into existence. So you need to praise that wasp and say thank you to it.
Just because your lives intersected doesn't mean it has to die.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm around a lot of wasps. I've made videos. I've been around hornet's nests. They leave me alone. I leave them alone,
There's something about CO2 as a trigger for
makes sense.
That kind of, they consider that aggressive, or they get more aggressive.
And then not panicking with the wasp, like when it lands on you, it's a good chance to practice self-control and mindfulness of a situation, which you need in self-defense situations. Focus on the fact, relax. It should be a chance to engage in some meditation or something, kind of like meditation, kind of yoga kind of thing.
Definitely a breathing exercise.
Yeah. But I mean, pretty much you're going to be all right. I've had a lot of wasps land on me. I've even made videos with them on my hand. I pick them up off the ground and hold them, and then bring them somewhere and let them be safe.
Yeah.
So it's cool. But they don't want to hurt me. They just crawl around, and I move my hand, and they crawl on the top, and they start crawling to their sides. So I turn my hand over, and they're crawling on my palm.
Yeah.
All good, but. And you get outdoors and you get to practice that mindfulness too, paying attention to whether birds are calling, if there's any change, which birds, how they're flying around. Pay attention to things visually and auditorily, the feeling of things, because that's very important in social situations too.
And I think that's like hearing versus listening. I think hearing as kind of being one-dimensional. It's like all of that stuff is coming at once, but if I'm listening, I'm going to say, okay, I hear the bird. Now I hear several birds, and then I can hear the breeze in the trees. I can hear something maybe down rustling through the leaves. We get armadillos and stuff, like a lot of squirrels.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm not actively listening, I just hear it with just one dimension. But that's a thing about I guess slowing down and being mindful. I personally have an issue where, like, lyrics of a song will go through my head over and over again.
Yeah.
But just like the same two lyrics or something like that. And I think my mind just uses that as filler for just the empty space. So when I recognize that happening, I do that in the car a lot. I just try to listen more and listen to, if I'm driving, I'm going to try to listen to the wheels on the road, whatever the engine is doing, sounds of that are happening outside. And it helps me with that thing about singing some song again for the 20th time.
Yeah, I wonder if that relates to, I mean, I've that experience sometimes too. I did the same thing as you. Great minds think alike. And, maybe that's kind of some kind of meditation thing or whatever. You know, in some meditation things, you want to think about something and focus on it or say some word over and over again. So maybe the song is a similar or the same psychological function. I don't know, but it seems like it.
But I guess when I'm thinking something, I like to have it serve a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it does, and I just don't know it. And right now, it's something that I try to minimize.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just try to accept that happens in my brain. But it's an opportunity for mindfulness for me, at least.
Yeah, because that's one thing. It seems like when I'm doing that, then I'm tuning out and not paying sufficient attention to my environment. So it tells me to focus, relax. It tells me that I need to tell myself that. Be aware of the environment. That's something that I think people could try. So if something like that happens, instead of just kind of accepting it passively, you just think, okay, now start to ask yourself, well, wait, kind of wake up, like, what's going on in my environment? What do I hear? What's usual? What's not? Start to ask yourself questions like that. With more practice, then it starts to become the norm. You start to lay down that reaction, that kind of, so you're passive. And then if you make yourself ask that question, what's going on in my environment? Eventually your nervous system makes that connection. And so then it just becomes something you don't even need words anymore for. It just becomes a feeling. Like you grasp that you're passive, and then you just start to feel that you need to ask questions, and it just kind of happens because of the stuff we've talked about before, like unconscious incompetence and conscious competence and unconscious competence. It just becomes second nature, a habit to start paying attention to your world.
Yeah, and I think for me, I take it as an indicator that I'm being less present, because I'm just,
good way to put it. Yeah,
humming in my head, or singing those same two phrases of lyrics over and over again. I wanted to ask you if you do any work at night in nature.
Any what?
That part of your experience. Do you go out at night to a natural setting?
No, but I should try to do that in the winter. I wouldn't want to do it in the summer, because then I couldn't see any coral snakes or copperheads that I come across.
Right.
Because I would not want to do it with the light. I'd want it to be actually in the dark. But in the winter, that's something I think I could do more. But then maybe I'd want to wear minimalist shoes, though, because in the daytime I can see some scat, but I wouldn't be able to see it at night. And so while we're there, it's like, that's one thing we want to learn about. Know your environment, know the risks involved in everything. Just like there's some stuff I'm aware of that I'll teach people about climbing trees that I don't hear other people talk about. So they just must be city folk, stuff like that. They don't like climb trees where I climb trees, and they must not be interested in ecology as much, and they don't know their environment, as I've had the good fortune to like learn about. But in so of course you don't want to step in scat. It's just like kind of disgusting. It's just that simple awareness and this disgust response we have, this kind of like in our nature or whatever. But through the years and looking into trekking and zoology and animal behavior and botany and foraging and all this stuff, I've learned that a lot of raccoons around the country have some infection. It depends on where you are. It could be like 70 to 9%, 90% in some places, but in their scat, you could get some worm, I think it is, and it will or can or will or always will maybe go up into your brain and eat your brain out. Not good. So I think
to avoid that.
Yes, I think in some situations, some worms know to go to an animal's intestines, but I think I've heard some people talk about how in a different animal, some different animals, different than what their host, different enough from their host, the worm becomes confused, doesn't quite know where to go, and that's why instead of going to the intestine, it might go to the brain or something. But that can be a fatal infection. And then, although I think it's rare, you can get some like worm or parasite, some fatal thing from some coyote scat, things like that. So, of course, there's just a disgust factor. It's gross, but then there's these other things we learn about. I'm not sure in my area what rate of infection the raccoons have. I haven't been able to find anything about that yet. I haven't looked a lot, but I have seen some of the general stats. But
in that circumstance, you probably want to take a protective measure.
Yeah.
Especially if it was new to you.
Yeah.
But of course, the natural environment does come more to life, or it's more recognizably as alive during the nighttime. A lot of different stuff happens.
Yeah. And especially nowadays, there's a lot of animals that, being close to human civilization, they've adapted by going out at night instead of the day.
Yeah. They're forced nocturnal.
Yeah. So, some animals are nocturnal, but there's some others that would be, diurnal? Is that the right word? In the day? They switched to nocturnal for like a kind of self-defense and to avoid people.
I think like coyote and fox and those types of creatures. Usually if I see them, it's in the early morning or maybe at night, but not usually during the middle of the day unless they're running.
Or unless you're out in their territory.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something I'd like to do sometime. That'd be cool. Thanks for the idea. Hadn't really
it's a
considered
different
it.
Experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have to see if some of my 5 fingers can fit. Still, maybe get a different pair of minimalist shoes and go walking around at night when it's cool enough so there won't be any, like, below 50, 45, so there won't be any snakes
snake
out.
life is still sleeping.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But cool.
I could put a damper on your journey pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah, then some of them, like rat snakes, can be a little more quiet and passive, and so it could be easier to step on one of them at night, and I wouldn't want to do that because they're valuable for our ecology. Help clean up the rodents, to keep a lid on Lyme disease and all the plague kind of stuff that rats carry.
Yeah.
But so, what other aspects of the martial arts, the way y'all teach it, did you want to talk about? Because it's been interesting talking about that holistic perspective.
I think we'll one of the things that I engage in, but it's not necessarily part of the holistic self-defense, is cold exposure, which is either through the water or through the air. And I use it to the degree that it's available here in Tulsa. I have some people, I guess, that I know that are up north who do real cold exposure. But I try to incorporate that as an additional stressor to some of my training, be it in, we do plunging, or just reducing the amount of clothing during the winter. Typically, if I'm moving, I'm going to be okay, down to maybe around freezing, in just shorts and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
But if you stop moving, that's when.
I understand that.
I don't have that skill just yet, but one of the things that I found is helpful to deal with the cold is, first of all, to be relaxed, because if you tense up against it as much as you can, to relax, because you're going to either spend energy or you're going to cue your body that something is wrong, and that's going to come through as discomfort. And the other is to just be able to practice that as a stressor, to provide an additional boost to either the movement that you're doing or a workout, or anything that might be an enhancement in that way.
Yeah, I think that that cold exposure helps you, and then it's, as you say, it's a stressor. You learn to breathe in that situation and maintain composure and control, and that can help you in other stressful situations. Is like a self-defense thing. If you got that, I just learn to connect, focusing on your breathing and controlling your breathing when you're stressed, then that'll be easier to do in a self-defense situation. Then, of course, practice that a little bit in a gym, doing some controlled self-defense before it comes up in the wild, so to speak, in a social situation or whatever.
Yeah.
And then,
especially,
go ahead.
Sorry. The initial, like if you're going to go in the water, that initial engagement, where your body is saying, this is not the thing to do, but your mind is saying, this is the thing that we're going to do. So let's find a way to make it work. And you're definitely right about, breathing and relaxation are what, help to, I guess, become more tolerant of cold exposure.
Yeah, and then breathing is connected to energy expenditure, energy production. So in the cold, if we can focus on our breathing and relax, then we can get our metabolism up a little bit more. Control your breathing, control your metabolism, warm up a little bit. And of course, moving in the cold helps. But and that's actually what Wim Hof does. I think Wim Hof will do some hyperventilation. So you're in this situation, like, within control, within a certain context and with some coaching, so you don't do anything stupid or hurt yourself. But So, of course, it's not recommended someone just go out and do it. We want to learn and understand what we're doing first. But doing some hyperventilating, it's something your body doesn't want to do. But then it helps you learn to control your breathing. And then you can use that to help you deal with the cold. And that's what Wim Hof is, like one of the things he's well known for.
Yeah, he's like his focus, I guess, part of the focus on the breath is to charge up the system, to inundate the blood with more oxygen, and to use that as a tool to support exposure.
Yeah, and that reminds me, speaking of that, it's like, so that's the kind of converse is what some people do in martial arts to try to subdue their opponent. If you can limit their breathing, if you can control their breathing, then you can start to control them.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
one thing that I enjoyed while sparring was that typically people didn't have, they might have skills, but they might not have that cardio foundation. So if you engage like in a defensive posture in the beginning and let them tire out, then they're less likely to defend themselves in a in the most optimal manner. But yeah, they get tired, and it's harder to lift your legs and arms when you're sucking air.
Yeah.
But that is a defensive technique.
And that's a technique used in many movies.
Yeah.
Or the faked injury thing.
Right.
Like, I think I saw that in like a boxing movie. Don't remember which one it is. Saw it a few months ago. Someone pretends he's injured, and then the other guy in the middle of the match, you know, all your adrenaline's high, your blood's pumping, you know, the other guy doesn't grasp what's going on, and the guy fakes it for like a round or two, and then pop, in comes the hand that's not really hurt. You know?
Yeah.
Surprise. But what else? Have you covered everything you wanted to about your holistic self-defense concept? How it's different than the concept some people have about self-defense as kind of being more purely physical. Thankfully, of course, some people are broader than that, as you've talked about. It's more than just purely physical, but I like that you add in diet and sleep and things like that.
Yep. Like the name implies, we try to think about a broader and more expansive definition of self-defense.
Yeah. So, yeah, you hear some people talk about trying to avoid a situation, and a big part of self-defense is just not getting in that situation in the first place. But you go beyond even that. That's pretty cool.
Being able to de-escalate is a wonderful a wonderful skill that I think saves more lives than pain than probably anything else.
Yeah, knowing how to do it well. It's come up in a book I've listened to. I don't remember which one. I don't know if it was When Violence Is the Answer by Tim Larkin. That's mainly talking about dealing with psychopaths who don't play by the rules and don't engage in mere social violence, but it might have been in there. But because of what it's about, maybe not. But yeah, in some social violence situations, someone says, "You looking at me?" You know, some books say, "Yeah, you remind me of my brother who just died like a week ago." And then how many people are going to really like continue to like go after you if it's something like that? You know?
Yeah.
Then it's like, then you can start to dialogue and get in a conversation and change it from being potential social violence to like de-escalating.
So Justin Averman, he came down and he did a workshop one time. And one of the things that he talks about is that an attacker they essentially have a script usually in their head about how things are going to go. Yeah. So if somebody draws a gun on you or takes a physical stance against you, and you say, what is the sound of yellow? So they have to either totally ignore that or pause for a second and say, what's the sound of yellow? So, and then hopefully that's going to open up an opportunity for you. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was an interesting technique.
Yeah. And there's other things I forgot. I've seen that in some movies too. Totally catch someone off guard psychologically. There's been some good examples in books, I think. And it's kind of related to the faking an injury thing.
Yeah. But there's a lot of different psychological methods that you can employ, like, we don't have to do this, or why are you angry? That can avoid the worst situation of actual physical altercation.
Unless it's a psychopath again,
Yeah, well, they're gonna do what they're gonna do regardless of what you say, and it's good to be able to identify that kind of attack initially.
Yeah. Well, hate to make a hard break, folks. Sorry, but Tim's got to go. So got to go soon. So any last words?
Oh, I also wanted to mention Kelly Starrett.
Yeah.
From the Ready State. If folks are looking for something to help with their physical maintenance, he is a good resource. The Supple Leopard is a book that he wrote. It lays a lot of good stuff out. But that's about it. I appreciate you inviting me back and having a chance to talk over some of the stuff that is important to me and that we agree on.
Yeah, it helps out, folks. Because it turned out, of course, we have self-defense that's got to come up in the wild, in social situations, but there's a lot of interplay between being out in nature, as I say, like flowing in between vines and everything, just like you might go with a person's arm, moving it around as they're striking, or as you like bend and go move with their arm, also move around a vine, move around a tree, move around a person, very similar dynamics there. Or the mindfulness, learning in one situation and taking it to the other, being very mindful of what's going on, and helps your driving too. Be out in nature, pay attention,
Sure.
It's help mind.
It's good to have tools in the toolbox.
Yeah. So a lot of interplay. So turned out to be, we didn't cover any of the questions that we had written down for this episode, but whatever. It was a good conversation. Cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So, all right. Well, thanks again, Tim. So look forward to more.
All right.
Okay. Talk to you soon. Bye.